All of Russia's track and field athletes will be banned from the Rio Olympics. They lost their joint appeal this morning following revelations about state-sponsored doping, a decision backed by the world's top sprinter.
I definitely feel that you should take action. And if you feel like banning the whole team is the right action, then I'm all for it.
Also this lunchtime, rickets, brittle bones and deformities. The dangers ahead because of our lack of vitamin D. Jeremy Corbyn calls for party unity as he launches his bid to remain Labour's leader. And Big Sam's big moments. The FA prepares to unveil Sam Allardyce as England manager.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Charlene White.
Good afternoon. Russia's banned track and field athletes will not be allowed to compete in the Rio Olympics after they lost their appeal today. 68 athletes were banned from competition last year over claims of state-sponsored doping. A spokesperson for the Kremlin said it's unacceptable to apply collective responsibility to Russian athletes. But other athletes, including the sprinter Usain Bolt, endorsed the findings, saying rules are rules. Caroline Sim reports.
It is the biggest sporting spectacle in the world, but this time at the Rio Olympics, Russian athletes won't be able to take part. The Russian Olympic Committee had appealed a decision by athletics' world governing body, the IAAF, to suspend the country from global track and field events. Today, the Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled that suspension was legal. It could now have implications for the rest of the Russian Olympic team.
Since the International Olympic Committee was not a party to these arbitrations, the CAS has no jurisdiction to determine whether the IOC is entitled to accept or refuse the nomination by the Russian Olympic Committee of Russian track and field athletes to compete at the Olympic Games in Rio.
The ban followed a detailed investigation which accused Russia of running a state-sponsored doping programme. There were claims that samples which tested positive simply disappeared and that Russian Secret Service agents had helped with the cover-up. Despite being accused of a deep-rooted culture of doping, President Putin insists the decision is wrong. 67 of his athletes say they're clean. Those claims won't ring true for this man. Usain Bolt, notoriously proud of his clean career, says we shouldn't feel too sorry for them.
If you have the proof and you catch somebody, I definitely feel that you should take action. And if you feel like banning the whole team is the right action, then I'm all for it, you know what I mean?
A handful of Russian athletes, including some whistleblowers, could still compete as individuals if they can prove they're clean. The IAAF hopes this now means athletes can compete on a level playing field, and there's a firm call for a change in culture in Russian sport. Caroline Sim, ITV News.
Our sports correspondent Ian Payne is outside the court in Lausanne in Switzerland, where today's decision was taken place. Ian, are there any options left for Russia's athletes?
Well, it's an interesting question, and there are some legal loopholes. But basically what's happened today, Charlene, is the Court of Arbitration for Sport here in Lausanne has decided that no Russian track and field athletes will be allowed to compete at the Rio Olympics. You can compete if you train outside of Russia, and also if you are prepared to run, jump, throw under a neutral flag, and only 2 competitors so far have been allowed to do that. There is actually an appeals process that the Russians could now go through, but we're just a few weeks away from the Olympics starting, and added to that, it's very unlikely they would overturn this very strict ruling, so it looks like Russia are out of track and field.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that obviously Rio 2016 is due to start very soon. So where do the other athletes in the team stand?
Well, the focus of attention will now switch to the other side of this town, actually, to the International Olympic Committee's headquarters. They're having another meeting on Sunday, we believe, when they're going to discuss whether or not they can actually ban the entire team. But after today's decision, that's looking more and more likely. Added to that, we've got the Paralympic Association also deciding whether to ban the Russian Paralympians from their games as well. There's going to be a lot of meetings coming up, but the bottom line is, legally, the IOC now have the green light to ban every Russian competitor from the Olympics.
OK, Ian, thank you very much. Health officials in England say we all need more vitamin D. Doctors are encouraging people to take supplements, saying exposure to the sun and diet isn't enough. The new guidelines from Public Health England say it's vital for bone and muscle health. Nazanin Mashiri has the details.
Until now, people have been told that sunshine in the summer and a balanced diet should prevent childhood diseases like rickets and bone disease in later life. But now both adults and children in England are being told that sunlight and vitamin D-rich foods may not be enough to promote good health.
Whilst the majority of the population are probably okay during the spring and summer, we know from our surveys and the blood analysis within those surveys that about 20% of people throughout the year don't meet the requirements.
So here are the new guidelines. Public Health England says everyone should get 10 micrograms of vitamin D a day in the autumn and winter. That includes children aged 1 to 4 years old. And all babies under 1 should have a daily vitamin drop of 8.5 to 10 micrograms.
The reason why experts are so concerned is because vitamin D is limited in our daily foods. For example, it takes the equivalent of 13 eggs and 3 tins of tuna just to get the vitamin D in 1 capsule.
Vitamin D capsules and drops are expensive. The NHS says it will help the poorest people, and most people agree it is important.
I see the supplement as is a insurance policy to make sure that if he's not, then he's taking it in another way.
I'd rather them get the natural sunlight than kind of give them additional supplements through capsules.
People my age, they need to take supplements, which the doctor always gives us.
I have got vitamin D deficiency myself, but sometimes the capsules they give are not suitable for vegetarians. So I think that also, if they're going to give capsules, they're going to make sure that they're suitable for all.
Substantial changes like this to public health advice are rare. Experts say the evidence shows it is the right decision and an important precaution for us all. Nazanin Mashiri, ITV News.
Well, joining me now is nutritionist and health expert Geeta Sidhu-Rob. Thank you so much for coming in. I mean, how big a problem is this, in your opinion?
I think it's huge, honestly. We've been talking about it for 5 years now, and because I'm really, really health conscious, and I did a test and realised I had 0 vitamin D in my body, 0, and I live incredibly healthily. And I was like, hang on a minute, how is that even possible? And that's when I started to uncover the issues. And we now know it because it's almost an epidemic. It's just massive now. But when it started was, the thing with it is that you don't notice you're losing vitamin D or you don't have vitamin D until there's a reason to find out. And that by that time, it's already really, really late.
Now, we're always spoken to about the importance of things like vitamin C, but never really about vitamin D. I mean, why is that? I think it would sell less sunscreen, probably, because you can't actually get vitamin D. There's a couple of things that makes vitamin D very restrictive. Firstly is that it's not a vitamin, it's actually a hormone, so it affects how you feel a lot more than anything else. The other thing is the side effects like osteoporosis were considered very female, and I think that sort of sidelined it slightly, instead of being something that the entire world has to actually look at. Then we started to say the sun was dangerous and you had to put up sunscreen. So for example, people like you and I who are darker need more time in the sun because pigment slows down the absorption of vitamin D, and you can't get it from food. So just not enough. Where should we be getting it from? You should get it from the sun. So if you can expose your arms, your hands and your face to the sun for a period of time every day, you will get vitamin D. So 6 days of exposure to the sun will make up for 29 days of none. Or you can do what I do, because I run the clinic, is I just get a vitamin D injection twice a year. My children take oral vitamin D every single day. Well, that's great advice. Geeta, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for having me. The Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has been outlining why he should keep his job. Launching his bid to stay as leader of the Labour Party, Mr Corbyn said he'll use the leadership contest to set out how a Labour government will tackle the 5 ills of the 21st century. But will it be enough to keep him where he is? Our political correspondent, Romilly Weeks, reports.
The great survivor of British politics is out to prove he can do it again. Jeremy Corbyn launching his second leadership bid today, maintaining that Labour is stronger under him.
Our campaign will set out how we plan to defeat the Tories and elect a Labour government that will act to tame the forces holding people back of inequality, neglect, insecurity, prejudice and discrimination.
Despite 70% of Labour MPs backing his rival, he claimed he would be able to reunite the party.
I hold out the hand of friendship to them all because come September, when this election is done and dusted, there will still be a Tory government in office. There will still be grotesque levels of inequality in our society. There will still be whole parts of this country that are left behind Britain. It's the job, it's the duty, it's the responsibility of every Labour MP to get behind the party at that point.
So who will get a say in choosing Labour's next leader? In the last few days, an extraordinary 183,000 people signed up to have a vote. Once vetted, they would join around 400,000 full Labour members and around 150,000 union affiliates who also get a vote. Mr Corbyn's rival Owen Smith today at pains to point out their differences.
Jeremy is to be congratulated for having brought lots of people into the Labour Party, reminded the Labour Party of its radical roots. Jeremy and I are both radicals, but I think I've got a practical edge to my socialism. I think I've got ideas about putting those radical ideas into practice as opposed to simply sloganising. Meetings are great in opposition, but they don't change people's lives. Cheers, bye.
We will find out in September whether his pitch or Jeremy Corbyn's has resounded with the members, with Mr Corbyn's camp predicting that, like last time, the majority of the new supporters who will have such a crucial stake in Labour's future will be on his side.
Well, Romilly, it's quite a passionate pitch there for Mr Corbyn, but did he say anything new?
Well, yes, there was. He clearly wants to respond to critics who say he's not electable as Prime Minister. There was a specific policy promise in this speech on tackling discrimination by forcing firms to publish details of the pay and conditions of their workers. And also, as you heard there, he was at his most passionate when talking about taking on the Tories. His team are making very confident noises about his ability to win again. Last time, about 8 out of 10 of those supporters who signed up for £3 to get a vote backed Jeremy Corbyn. This time, one Labour insider has told me that amongst the new supporters, the split is thought to be more likely to be 60 to 40 in favour of Mr Corbyn. So the battle for Labour's future could be much tighter this time round.
Romilly, thank you. Police in Australia have arrested a man for an apparent attempted terror attack after he drove a car reportedly loaded with gas canisters into the underground car park of a Sydney police station. It claims the man was burned before being detained, but that no other members of the public or police were injured. Police are looking for two men who threatened a soldier with a knife outside one of the country's biggest army barracks. Police say they believe it was an attempted abduction and can't rule out terrorism as a motive. Well, Natalie Gray is outside RAF Marham for us. Natalie, what more do we know at this stage?
Well, first of all, let me say you might be surprised to see how busy it is here at RAF Marham. This is not a base in lockdown. In fact, they've decided to go ahead with a family fun day for 8,000 people. But there is a huge police and military presence here, and no wonder. In the last half an hour, police have confirmed that two men of Middle Eastern appearance tried to kidnap a serviceman out jogging near the Marrick Quarters, which is about a mile from here, yesterday afternoon. He did manage to get away, but he was very lucky. One was armed with a knife. Now, we've seen an internal memo which says until the threat subsides, no one is to be on their own, on foot or on a bicycle within the local area in uniform or anything that indicates they're from the military. Now, police aren't saying this is a terrorism attack. They're not ruling it out, but they say there could be plenty of other explanation, but they are appealing for information.
OK, Natalie, thanks very much. Still to come. England turn to Big Sam. We're in Sunderland to get all the details on the country's next manager. And Harry takes centre stage to put AIDS back on the world's agenda. Another day, another extraordinary set of headlines in American politics. Texas Senator Ted Cruz has been booed off stage by his own Republican supporters after he failed to endorse Donald Trump for president. The tradition of unity at the convention was thrown out of the window last night as the party split. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore was there.
For months, the Republican Party cracks have been visible. Last night, all hopes of unity vanished in a spectacular primetime clash that American politics hasn't seen for a generation. It started well. Ted Cruz, who had fought Trump to the bitter end, acknowledged political reality.
I want to congratulate Donald Trump on winning the nomination last night.
But then came the sentence that ripped open the wounds and shocked the convention.
If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience.
The phrase "vote your conscience" is code for defying the Trump machine. And the crowd turned on Cruz with an anger I have never seen before at a convention. In a power play that was impossible to miss, Donald Trump then appeared, distracting the arena and leaving Cruz to walk away to booing and chants of support for the man who beat him. It all utterly overshadowed the appearance of Mike Pence. Even that was marred by an awkward embrace. The Republican vice presidential nominee was intended to bring some stability to the ticket. Now the party must try and pick up the pieces.
The challenge is not just about party unity. It is also the question of whether Donald Trump temperamentally, emotionally, can soften his harsh rhetoric.
And that we will find out tonight. The future of the party resting on what he says to Republicans and to all Americans. Robert Moore, ITV News, Cleveland.
Top officials at the Football Association have been meeting at Wembley today to formally agree Sunderland's Sam Allardyce as the next England manager. An official announcement is expected this afternoon. Well, Duncan Golestani is outside Sunderland's ground for us. Duncan, have you seen him there today?
Well, we weren't really expecting Sam Allardyce to turn up for training this morning, but he did, and he looked pretty happy with himself, giving a thumbs up to the waiting cameras as he swept into the training ground. If he is understandably happy with his impending appointment, the club here, Sunderland, much less so. Of course, they understand him getting the big call-up, but they are frustrated at the pace and very public nature of this appointment. They feel like they've been in limbo for around 3 weeks. Allardyce has been here for 9 months, and in that time he's helped Sunderland fight off relegation. So the fans here are sad, but they are understanding.
Not happy with it. It's what he wants, so best of luck to him.
It's a job he's always wanted to do, so good luck to him.
At the end of the day, you can't begrudge him that. I think he's a great manager. I wish he was staying. I've supported Sunderland for many, many years now, and other than Peter Reid, he's probably one of the best managers we've ever had.
Now, as we know, he wasn't the only person framed for the job, but do we know why he's the chosen one?
Well, to a certain extent, he's the last man standing because so many managers have been sacked over the last year. But despite not winning a major trophy, he does have vast Premier League experience and is well regarded. Have a listen to what Greg Dyke, the outgoing chairman of the FA, had to say as he arrived at Wembley this morning.
Oh, clearly the three-man group are convinced he's the right man, and I go along with that, yes.
Some of the criticism about his style of play, I mean, do you think that's irrelevant at this stage? Because
I think you should ask them. They've discussed it with him, I haven't.
So we're just waiting for an official announcement this afternoon.
OK, thanks very much, Duncan. Finally, in an echo of the work his mother began, Prince Harry has spent the day at an international AIDS conference in South Africa. In a major speech, he warned against complacency in fighting the disease, which still kills more than 1 million people every year. Black Africa correspondent John Ray is in Durban for us. So, John, what has Prince Harry been saying exactly?
Well, of course, AIDS and the fight against HIV is still a big preoccupation of Prince Harry's charitable work here in Africa, because it kills so many people and it is at the root of so many other social ills. One of the messages Prince Harry has been getting across is the importance of young people in particular getting HIV tests. Now, he sort of made the pledge in writing here about HIV testing and its importance. He's actually done it in reality a week or so ago back in London. But of course, everybody here remembers his mother for the time that she did so much to break through the stigma of AIDS. And that's also what Prince Harry talked about in a very affecting speech here a few minutes ago. Here's what he said.
When my mother held the hand of a man dying of AIDS in an East London hospital, no one would have imagined that just over a quarter of a century later, treatment would exist that could see HIV-positive people live full, healthy, loving lives. But we now face a new risk, the risk of complacency.
John, AIDS seems to have fallen out of the headlines in the last 20 years or so. Is there any headway being made in tackling it?
Well, he talks about complacency, so here's a couple of facts to break through that. In Africa, AIDS is still the largest killer of adolescents. Around the world, it's the #2 killer of adolescents. And the big fear is this, that for the first time in years, AIDS funding is declining. The worry is that the number of AIDS patients will begin to increase.
OK, John, thanks very much. Well, that's it this lunchtime. We'll be back at 6:30. The news are where you are. Follow international weather. Goodbye.